A leader must own everything in his or her world. I attend a university to become a dentist, and as you can imagine, it takes a lot of effort. It takes 5 years of practice and hardcore studying to be able to legally torture people. I mean, to be able to help them. So in this long road, there's a lot of borderline impossible challenges. At the end of the second year, for example, you have to take the final exam in anatomy. You basically have to know the whole human body. You have to learn a couple of thousand new words in Latin. Sounds fun, doesn't it? When I was studying it, I found that a lot of topics that the Department of Anatomy had given us were incomplete, or certain topics were not entirely covered in the books I had. Also, there were rumors out there from some of the students who had already failed that some of the professors are really rude and unfair. On top of all of this, I had a lot of other exams that made preparing for this one even harder. With all these things adding up, I pretty much assured myself that failing this exam wouldn't be my fault. After all, there were a lot of factors working against me. Matter of fact, that was true. All of these things made passing the exam harder. What I hadn't realized back then is that even if you have a seemingly valid excuse to blame your fail on, it doesn't matter. I could have pointed to a dozen different reasons why I failed, but in the end, I still would have failed. Either in your own life or when leading a team, the easiest way out of failure is to find something or someone to blame for it. It's easy because blaming others for the failure would take all the responsibility away from you, so in theory, you have nothing to worry about. On the other hand, with no responsibility, you have no control over what's happening. You're like a leaf in the wind. In the end, it comes down to a choice, whether you want to take the easy road and avoid responsibility, but with that, also avoid the chance of improvement, or you follow the hard road and take ownership of both your and your team's actions. Responsibility may suck, but with that, you gain the possibility of almost endless improvement. My story is an everyday one, but what Jocko Willink tells in the book is far from being one. Iraq, Ramadi, in the midst of war, two friendly forces report on the radio that they're under heavy fire, and they have wounded and killed soldiers, but also have casualties. One of the reporting forces is a SEAL sniper team, led by Jocko Willink. Although SEALs are known to run towards the sound of gunfire, when he hears the reports, he has a gut feeling that something is terribly wrong. When further exploring the situation, everything becomes clear for him. In the fight, somehow the two friendly teams had mistaken each other for enemy troops, and one Iraqi soldier was shot and killed by friendly fire, and others were injured. Upon returning to the base, an investigation officer is assigned to find out what happened exactly, and who is responsible for it. A day later, as the debriefing starts with the investigation officer, other leaders, Willink and his teammates, Willink asks, who's responsible for this? Although a few of his teammates replied that it was their fault because they had some part in the mishap, Willink tells them that it wasn't. It was his fault. There's only one to blame. Him. He realizes that as the leader of the team, he's responsible for the entire operation. Blame could be assigned to a lot of people. Certain actions could be pinpointed. But that wouldn't help. The only thing that could help move the situation forward is for a leader to step forward and take responsibility for what's happened. Despite the fact that this action would cause a huge blow to both his reputation and ego, he chooses the hard way, the only way that a true leader would take. He takes extreme ownership of everything that's happened. This way, the team could move forward and find ways that they could improve. Or in this certain situation, they could find a way to make sure nothing like this ever happens again. A team is only as good as its leader. When authors Willink and Babin are directing SEAL training, they witness another principle of leadership. In Hell Week, which takes the SEAL candidates far beyond their athletic capabilities and into testing the last bit of their mental strength, among many other tasks, there are grueling back-to-back boat races. In each boat, there are 7 men, a boat leader, and 6 others that the leader has to manage. The boat race has a very desirable first place. The winner is to sit out the next race. The second one in SEAL language is the first loser. So it pays to be a winner. After a couple of races, one team starts to dominate, and another team almost always finishes at the last place. The instructors then switch the best performing team's leader with the worst performing team's leader, and something interesting happens. The previously dead last team starts to perform better and even wins one of the races. In the next hour, they manage to win most of the races. It's not because of a miracle, but because there are no bad units, only bad officers. Another key principle of leadership is leaders are responsible for making sure that everyone on the team understands the plan and the purpose of their mission. Information should be as simple as possible without risking the chance of someone misunderstanding it. The SEALs form a deadly and accurate weapon when aimed right. But what if the aim is blurred? Jocko Willink is thinking this makes no sense at all, when he got the mission statement from higher commands. He and his team are ordered to execute missions with Iraqi security forces. These Iraqi soldiers are undoubtedly the worst combat troops in the world. They are uneducated, undisciplined, untrained, and most of the time they lack even the most fundamental knowledge of being a fighter. On the other hand, the SEALs are an exceptionally well-trained group. He just can't wrap his head around the fact that he and his team, his friends, his brothers have to fight alongside those troops. Fighting in Ramadi, even with the best soldiers, is extremely dangerous. But with these forces, it's borderline suicide. He starts to think, what could possibly be the reason for this order? Then it dawns on him. If they don't teach these soldiers how to handle security in their own country, US soldiers would have to be in Iraq for decades. Now it all makes sense to him. The order hasn't changed, but now he sees the purpose, why they have to do it. These leadership principles I mentioned in this video are just a few among others you can read about in the book. Let me know in the comments section which one you find the most important.